He showed them his badge, but they laughed. Seconds later, they threw him against the wall and cuffed him, unaware they'd just made the biggest mistake of their careers. What happened next shook the entire department. It was a calm, crisp Tuesday morning in downtown Atlanta, the kind of morning where the city moved with its usual rhythm. Office workers hustled in sharp suits. Coffee vendors handed out steaming cups to half-awake commuters. Car horns echoed off tall buildings as another busy day began. But just a few blocks away, something far from ordinary was unfolding beneath the surface. Inside a towering federal building, Special Agent Marcus Bryant stood in silence, mentally reviewing every detail of the operation that had taken months to build. He wasn't your average agent. With over 12 years of field experience, multiple commendations, and a reputation for staying calm under pressure, Marcus was trusted with one of the FBI's most sensitive undercover missions to date. His target? A powerful and deeply embedded real estate cartel suspected of laundering millions through fake property investments and bribing city officials along the way. Today, the hammer was going to drop. Or so he thought. To maintain his cover, Marcus dressed plainly: khaki shirt, neutral pants, no visible gear. Just another regular guy headed to court. No tie, no badge on display. He walked into the courthouse's parking garage, the unofficial staging area for the takedown. Every step he took was calculated. Every second mattered. He checked his watch. His team was in position. His wire was live. The sting was about to begin, but just then, everything started to unravel. Out of the corner of his eye, Marcus noticed two local police officers eyeing him from across the garage. Their posture changed. One of them put his hand on his belt. The other whispered something into his radio. Marcus didn't flinch, but he knew what was coming. They didn't recognize him. They didn't ask questions. To them, he looked out of place. Suspicious. A threat. Little did they know, the man they were about to confront wasn't just anyone. He was federal. He was trained, and what they were about to do would spark a firestorm that neither of them could control. What happens when someone in power forgets to ask the right question? You're about to find out. Just moments after Marcus stepped into position near the courthouse entrance, the mission began to crumble, not because of a cartel leak, but because of ignorance and unchecked assumptions. Two uniformed officers, both young, cocky, and clearly inexperienced with federal protocol, were loitering near a patrol car. One of them spotted Marcus from a distance, brows furrowing. "Yo," he muttered to his partner, nudging him with an elbow. "Who's that guy?" The second one squinted. "He doesn't look like he belongs here," he whispered. And just like that, no probable cause, no verification, no professional courtesy, they made a decision that would haunt them. Without identifying themselves, or even asking a basic question, the two officers stormed toward Marcus with raised voices and a threatening stance. "Hey, hands where I can see them." One of them barked like he was in a movie scene. Marcus turned slowly, deliberately. He kept his voice calm and even. No sudden movements. He pulled out his credentials, held them clearly in front of him. "Special Agent Marcus Bryant, FBI. I'm in the middle of a federal operation. Stand down." But instead of responding like trained professionals, the officers exchanged a smirk. "FBI?" One scoffed. "Yeah. Right. That's a good one." The other chimed in with something even colder. "You people always have some excuse." Marcus's jaw tightened. His patience was tested, but his training held him steady. "I suggest you radio your chief. Or better yet, call the local FBI field office. You're interfering in a federal investigation." But it was already too late. One officer grabbed his arm. The other slammed him against the cold concrete wall. In seconds, handcuffs clicked into place. They patted him down like a criminal. Rough, careless, loud. Courthouse staff began to gather. Lawyers looked on in disbelief. Even some of Marcus's own team, disguised and waiting nearby. Frozen helpless shock, unable to break cover without blowing the operation. A man who had taken down arms dealers and cyber criminals was now being humiliated in public. Not for what he did, but because of how he looked. Hook. How far can pride and prejudice go when power is in the wrong hands? You're about to see. Marcus didn't fight back. He didn't shout, plead, or try to run. Why? Because he knew how this would play out. One wrong move, one sharp breath, and suddenly he'd be the problem, even with a badge in his hand and justice on his side. So, as the cuffs clicked around his wrists and the officers shoved him toward the wall, Marcus stayed still. His heart raced, but his eyes stayed sharp, scanning, calculating. He was watching everything, every word, every glance, every mistake. He knew backup would come. It had to. But even he didn't expect what happened next. Exactly 7 minutes into the wrongful arrest, the silence of the tense garage was shattered by the deafening screech of tires. A sleek black SUV tore around the corner and skidded to a halt just feet from the scene. Out stepped FBI Assistant Director Karen Lowell, power suit, sunglasses, and a storm on her face. Behind her, a full tactical unit fanned out, weapons holstered but eyes alert. She walked straight up to the two officers, ice in her voice, fire in her stride. "Uncuff him, now." The officers froze. One stuttered, "Ma'am, we didn't know he didn't look like." "Wrong answer." Karen cut him off without blinking. "You just arrested one of my top agents during an active federal sting, without cause. You're lucky you didn't blow a $2 million operation." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Phones came out. Some started filming. Others just watched wide-eyed and speechless. Marcus finally raised his head. No anger, just quiet authority. He nodded to Karen, cool and composed, like a man who'd been here before. Karen turned to the stunned staff, lawyers, and court officials nearby. "What you just witnessed," she said firmly, "is racial profiling in real time. This is how innocent people are treated, even with a badge. And it almost cost us months of work. Let that sink in." Hook moment. What happens when people judge based on skin, not the badge? Sometimes they get away with it. But not today. The fallout was immediate. Within hours of the incident, both officers involved in the wrongful arrest were placed on administrative leave. The body cam footage, combined with witness accounts and the assistant director's formal complaint, left the department with no choice. But for Marcus, suspension wasn't enough. He didn't want revenge. He wasn't looking to humiliate anyone. What he wanted was accountability. So, he filed a formal review with the Department of Justice and pushed for an independent investigation, not just into his own case, but into the systemic flaws that allowed situations like this to happen repeatedly. This wasn't about a badge anymore. It was about the message. If it can happen to an FBI agent, who's safe? News spread fast. Major networks ran the headline, "FBI agent wrongfully arrested by local cops, mistaken identity or racial profiling." Social media exploded. Hashtags trended. Civil rights groups reached out. Former officers spoke up. The pressure mounted. But through it all, Marcus remained silent. No interviews. No flashy statements. No TikToks. Just a quiet return to work. The next day, suited up, head high, mission-focused. Reporters eventually caught up with him outside his office. One asked, "Agent Bryant, are you angry?" He paused, looked the camera straight on, and said, "I've been through worse. But this wasn't about me, it's about the system. If someone with my credentials can get thrown against a wall, what's happening to the everyday person with no badge to pull?" That moment hit hard. It wasn't a soundbite, it was a warning. Marcus didn't just return to work. He became a quiet symbol of resilience, of grace under fire, and of the deep need for reform. Within weeks, local police departments across the state began updating their profiling and arrest training protocols. Bias training was expanded, and a statewide task force on law enforcement accountability was launched. All because one man stayed calm, stayed strong, and spoke the truth. One man's courage turned a wrongful arrest into a national wake-up call. And he didn't need a spotlight to make change, he just needed the truth. 1 month later, the storm had quieted. But its ripple effects were just beginning. The two officers who had wrongfully arrested Marcus were officially reassigned to desk duty. Before returning to any fieldwork, they were ordered to complete comprehensive bias and de-escalation training. But perhaps more importantly, they were made to issue a formal public apology to both Marcus and the entire FBI field division. It wasn't perfect justice, but it was a start. For Marcus, though, the apology wasn't the victory. His goal was never about punishment, it was about progress. And his moment of true victory came on a quiet morning, standing in front of a group of fresh police cadets at a local academy. A guest speaker that day, Marcus stepped onto the stage, not in his tactical gear, not in a bulletproof vest, but in a simple suit, calm, composed, confident, the very image of what leadership should look like. Over 100 young recruits sat before him, hanging on every word. And then he said something that silenced the entire room. Power without accountability becomes abuse. You're not here to look tough. You're not here to assume or stereotype. You're here to protect, not profile. Because the badge you wear doesn't just give you authority, it gives you a responsibility to be better than your bias. The room was still. You could hear the air conditioning hum. Then from the third row, a young cadet slowly raised his hand. His voice shook a little. "Sir, thank you for not losing faith in the badge. People like you remind us what it's supposed to mean." That moment said everything. Marcus didn't clap back at injustice with anger or revenge. He met ignorance with integrity. And through his actions, he didn't just change a department. He began to shift a generation of officers towards something better. Because Marcus didn't just wear the badge. He honored it, even when others failed to. What would you do if you were wrongly arrested, even after proving your identity? Would you fight back, stay calm, or walk away forever? Let us know in the comments below. Your opinion could inspire someone watching. Like this video if you believe respect should go beyond skin color. Subscribe for more powerful true stories that uncover truth, inspire justice, and reveal the humanity behind the headlines.